Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Lincoln Mitchell, who is a professor in School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University and is also a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the first thing I want to know is your first reactions to Biden quitting the race.
Well, within seconds of this news breaking, my phone lit up with people who were Democrats who were just extremely happy about this. There was a growing feeling in the Democratic Party that Biden couldn't win, and I think that was probably true, and that this was the right decision. And additionally, my first feeling was that the next step has to be to kind of circle around Kamala Harris. She has to be the nominee. There'd been a lot of talk about mini primaries and a contested convention. Now, to be clear, Harris has to go to the convention and win the nomination, but it's very clear now that she will. And this really changes the race. The Republicans, I mean, with the unfortunate event where the former president was almost assassinated, and then going into the Republican convention, had a lot of momentum, and this just puts an end to that momentum. So this really shakes up the race.
Right, sir. Clearly, like you mentioned, the focus of the race has now shifted. It is potentially perhaps a Trump versus Harris race for the White House. Now, at least 40 Democrats, they were against Biden's re-election bid. How do you assess Harris now being the Democratic nominee? Who stands in the way, and what are the challenges that she faces?
Well, it's always going to be a close election, right? So I think there's a few clear challenges that she faces here. One is that Trump is wildly popular among Republicans, so he has his party consolidated behind him. He may have a limited space to grow, but he has that. Secondly, Harris has to begin to articulate the story of the successes of the Biden administration, which Joe Biden, frankly, because of his, I think, medical condition, was really unable to do. She also has to find a way to defend against the perceived failures of the Biden administration. Neither the president nor the vice president or anyone in the administration has been able to speak to the American people about inflation and recognize how deep a problem that is for so many Americans, and to say why this is not due to Biden's policies, but due to larger issues. She has to make that argument. I think she has to make the argument about the border, an issue where she's identified. She also has to really channel her inner prosecutor. Remember, she was district attorney from the city of San Francisco, where I am now, and then attorney general for the state of California, and make the case that Donald Trump is a career criminal, and make the case of how damaging a Trump presidency would be, something that, again, she's better positioned to do because she's simply more energetic and articulate than Joe Biden was at this point.
Now, talking on that, what if, so is Harris actually a good pick? Now, Trump can call out Harris on the different issues like immigration, but if any other candidate would have been chosen, for example, any governor of Pennsylvania or Michigan, maybe they would not have to answer as much as Harris would have to. So is it a good choice for picking Harris?
That's right. A candidate from the outside would not have the negatives of the Biden administration, but there's also a lot of positives with Kamala Harris. So first of all, clearly she's qualified. She's not stepping in to a job. It's not her first run at the national stage. So that's significant. She's been in the meeting. She's been part of the process. Has foreign policy experience. Somebody like Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan wouldn't have any of those things. So that's a big advantage. Secondly, the American elections, there's so much going on, and there's often some issue that may not be internationally seen as very important that will become very important in the election. And here in the United States, in this election, that's reproductive freedom. Dobbs' decision made a few years ago by the Republican-dominated Supreme Court is extremely unpopular, and there has been no better spokesperson for the pro-choice argument than Kamala Harris. And if she is the candidate that can mobilize middle-aged, kind of moderate, politically centrist women on this issue, and she's very well positioned to do that, that will be a great advantage for the Democratic Party. Additionally, there's this funny moment because Kamala Harris's poll numbers have never been that strong among African Americans. However, if she were to be passed over in favor of a white candidate, the Democratic Party would have a problem with African American voters, who are the bedrock, biggest, most important base within the party. Donald Trump had to make inroads there. Kamala Harris can begin to turn those inroads around. Suddenly, states like Georgia and Virginia, North Carolina are looking much better for the Democratic Party, as well as Michigan and Pennsylvania, because we can imagine a re-energized African-American base, which again is, Democrats can't win without that ever.
Right. With news just coming in, the Democratic State Party chairs have also united behind Harris. But the pertinent question being is that Barack Obama has not endorsed Harris yet. Why is that? Rather, the Clintons have taken Harris's name as the potential nominee for the Democrats.
Barack Obama will endorse Kamala Harris soon. He's always liked her. A matter of fact, when he was president and Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of California, maybe it's funny, maybe it's not so funny, I don't know, but he got himself in a little trouble because he referred to Kamala Harris as the best-looking Attorney General in the country. You know, she's a younger woman, and that was probably not appropriate for the president to say that. But he's always had great respect for her. He will endorse her. I think he was not aware. He was trying to be statesmanlike, and the momentum around Harris gathered very quickly. So I suspect in the next 48 hours, you will see an Obama endorsement of Kamala Harris. And it is striking. I mean, it is striking to the governor of my state, Gavin Newsom, who was both a kind of a frenemy politically of Kamala Harris. You know, the same donor base, the same neighborhood in San Francisco where they were strongest, a national figure, he's endorsed her. So we're seeing the strongest opponents of her in a convention saying, you know what, we're with Kamala. And I suspect the next 48, 72 hours, you'll see an enormous amount of money pouring back into the Democratic Party. And this, you know, it's not formal until the convention. We should be clear of that. She's not yet the Democratic nominee, but it's going to be pretty apparent that she'll be the nominee.
Right. Now, really quickly, I would like to know, if it's a really short question. Now, we know that Biden, the whole campaign is going to be changing with the Biden's exit. Now, looking at Republicans, now how are they going to start looking at the campaigning start now?
Well, they have a different challenge here, right? Because suddenly, who's the old guy who can't remember names? Who's the old guy who garbles his speech? Who's the old guys whose grammar is all strange, right? Suddenly, that's Donald Trump. And they have geared their whole campaign around this contrast, Trump strong, Biden weak. You can't do that. Everything has changed. I suspect they'll go after Harris, try to tag her with all the negatives of the Biden administration. So again, immigration, inflation. The foreign policy stuff is going to be difficult because, you know, one foreign policy is complicated. The two biggest conflicts right now for the United States are Ukraine, where the Democratic Party is united and the Republican Party is divided, and Gaza, where the Democratic Party is divided and the Republican Party is united. So I don't think they'll effectively go after her on foreign policy. Look, this is the United States of America. We have to be honest here. Kamala Harris is a woman. She's African American and she's Asian American, and she's the daughter of immigrants. And they will go after all that. You will see not very coded racism. The DEI candidate, is she smart enough? Of course she's smart enough. Look at her resume. Is she tough enough? A pretty tough attorney general. But they'll go after her in those very ugly ways. And given today's Republican Party, the racism might not be so coded. And you know what the American people have shown is that they're perfectly comfortable voting for people of color for the highest office, and they don't like that kind of overt racism. So that would hurt the Republican Party, but they may not be able to.
All right. Thank you so much, Lincoln Mitchell. That was, he's a professor in School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your opinion.
Thank you. My pleasure.